I know this world is constantly rushing. People don't have time for quiet stories, stories that bruise slowly before they bleed. So, if you're still here, even for a few seconds, I really appreciate it. I don't tell this because I want sympathy. I'm telling it because I was erased. Not in an explosive way, not in a movie scene kind of way, in the quiet, invisible way that happens behind perfect curtains and respectable smiles. I rewrite this story with the patience of a person who is forgotten. Just hope that somewhere in this, you'll see a small moment that reminds you, you were never crazy for feeling unseen. And if you feel it, leave a very gentle sign, a light touch on the like button. Let me know. Someone is still listening. We called it the homecoming. That was the name of the party printed on the invitations. Sleek navy cardstock, cursive gold letters, RSVP requested. After years of renting, my parents had finally bought their forever home, a modern colonial on the edge of Connecticut woods, white shutters, and a winding brick path. They said it was meant to start over. I didn't know what they meant until the night unfolded. The backyard was decorated like a wedding reception. Fairy lights strung through the trees, white tablecloths brushing the grass, jazz humming low beneath polite conversation. I stood near the edge of the deck, half holding a plastic flute of cider, watching guests in pastel sweaters float from one compliment to the next. Then he stepped up to the mic. My father, wearing his signature blue blazer, voice steady and proud like he was at a board meeting. "Everyone," he said, tapping the glass gently. "Thank you for being here to celebrate this new chapter. But this house," I don't remember walking back into the house. I just remember the sound of my boots sticking slightly to the polished floorboards, and the way my shadow followed me, quiet, like it understood what I couldn't say. Inside, it smelled like rosemary and cedar, and too much expensive candle. The air conditioning was on, even though the October air outside was already cool. They always liked things controlled. I stood in the hallway, staring at the family photo wall. There we were, me at 10, arms crossed in a 4th of July shirt too big for my frame. Mom's hand was on my shoulder, but she wasn't looking at me. Dad was, but not really. Back then, I thought I was just sensitive, too emotional, too dramatic. That's what they always said. "Zoe, you take everything so personally." "Zoe, it's not always about you." Like the time I brought home a second-place ribbon for the regional science fair. I had built a working model of ocean currents out of recycled plastic. Dad read the ribbon, glanced at my project board, and said, "Next time, aim for first. Otherwise, what's the point?" He didn't even look at the model, didn't ask how I made it, just walked back to the kitchen, leaving me alone with glue-stained hands and a stomach full of shame. And then there was the gift. I was 13. It was Christmas morning. I'd saved for months to buy Mom a hand-blown glass vase. I thought it was beautiful, light blue swirls, delicate edges. She opened it, smiled too quickly, and said, "Oh, this might not go with the color palette." She never used it. It disappeared within the week. But Caleb got a matching leather duffel bag and a monogrammed pen set tonight. He smiled when he opened them. Dad clapped him on the back. Everyone laughed when Caleb made a joke about finally being part of the dynasty. I didn't sleep. I lay there, fully clothed, staring at the pale ceiling where a hairline crack cut through the plaster like a fault line. The kind you don't notice until it's already too late. The kind that looks small, but means the foundation has shifted. At 3:12 a.m., I got out of bed. There was something I needed to check. I walked downstairs barefoot, careful not to wake anyone. The air was cold. The house creaked like it was breathing. In Dad's study, nothing had changed. Same bookshelf full of biographies he never finished. Same glass globe with a secret whiskey compartment. Same locked drawer. Only now, there was something new. A framed photo of Dad and Caleb, smiling in front of a lake I didn't recognize. They were fishing. The timestamp said June, 3 months before tonight, 3 months before the introduction. So this wasn't new. This wasn't spontaneous. They had history. I pulled open the bottom drawer, the one that never quite closed right, and found an envelope I'd seen 1,000 times. Grandpa's handwriting on the corner. Faded, fragile, but definitely his. I remembered how he used to send me postcards even when he lived an hour away. Little drawings in the margins, always ending with, "Don't let anyone make you feel small." He died 2 years ago. They said he left nothing behind. Just some old tools and his war medals. But inside this envelope was something else. A receipt for a DNA kit. A torn photograph of my mother, pregnant, standing next to a young man I didn't recognize. Dated 18 years ago. And a single page. Part of a letter. Burned at the edges, but readable. If you're reading this, they've erased you. They will say it was a misunderstanding. They will call it protection. But you need to know, they didn't forget you. The test took 17 days. 17 days of walking around like a ghost inside my own skin, smiling at coworkers, editing grant proposals, picking up groceries, pretending not to count down every hour. I didn't tell anyone. Not even Nora, my best friend since college, who once helped me bury my childhood hamster with a flashlight and a popsicle stick cross. She noticed something was wrong. "Your texts feel like postcards from someone drowning," she said. I almost told her. But how do you explain that you're not sure if the people who raised you were ever planning to keep you? So I stayed silent. Until the envelope arrived. It was smaller than I expected. Just a folded report with my name on it and a series of numbered lines that changed everything. At the top, Zoe Elizabeth Reed. Below it, a line in bold. Biological father. Not a match. Not a match, like a missing puzzle piece in the wrong box. Like trying to unlock your front door with someone else's key. Like standing in your own house and realizing the walls were never yours. But then, another line. Genetic relative detected, Caleb R. Weller, 48.7% shared DNA. Status? Half-sibling. I stared at the word, half. Not a stranger, not adopted, not switched at birth, but part of a messy, hidden design they didn't think I'd ever untangle. I printed the report, tucked it inside my old journal, and called Nora. "You busy next Thursday?" I asked. "For you, always available," she replied. "You okay?" I hesitated. Number. But I'm getting there. Thanksgiving came fast. Dad texted me the morning of, "Hope you'll join us. Caleb's making sweet potato casserole." I stared at the message, then typed, "Sure, I'll bring dessert." I walked in that afternoon wearing navy blue, the same shade as the invitation from the housewarming party. Mom opened the door. She looked surprised, but she smiled. The way people do when they're not sure what game is being played. "Zoe," she said, "this is a nice surprise." "I know," I said softly. Inside, the same candles, same fireplace, same Caleb. No one said a word for a full minute. The paper sat there like a ghost on the table, white and sharp, cutting through the roasted turkey smell and the polished silence. Dad blinked first. This is unnecessary," he said, folding the document like it might disappear if he just creased it enough. "No," I replied, voice even. "What's unnecessary is lying to someone for 27 years. Caleb looked between us, a casserole spoon still in his hand. "I don't understand. What does this mean?" I turned to him, careful, kind even. "It means we're related, but not the way they told you." I looked directly at Mom. You had him after me, and you hid it. She flinched, the kind of flinch that comes from memory, not pain. I was trying to protect you, she whispered. From what? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. My words landed heavy anyway. From the truth, she replied, then softer. From the fact that you were never supposed to happen. The air left the room. Caleb sat down, quietly. I felt it then. Not rage, but relief, like a puzzle clicking into place, even if the image it revealed was devastating. You replaced me with him? I said. But you didn't erase me. I remembered everything. Grandpa's voice still echoed in my head. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Dad stood, jaw tight. Zoe, don't do this in front of everyone. This is a family holiday. No, I said, standing too. This is a family reckoning. I opened my journal. Inside was Grandpa's letter, what was left of it. I read aloud. They will call it protection. But you need to know, they didn't forget you. They chose not to tell you. Then I handed it to Caleb. You deserve to know too, I told him. It wasn't your fault either. He took it, eyes wide, hands trembling. Everyone else? They just sat, frozen, except for Nora. She reached for my hand beneath the table, squeezed it once. Solid, real. I turned to Dad. What were you going to do? Pass everything down to him like I never existed? He didn't answer, so I answered for him. You already did. I took a deep breath. Which is why I'm taking something back. From my bag, I pulled out a second envelope, a notarized copy of Grandpa's will, the real one. It stated in clear language that the house, the land, and the legacy would go to the person he called the one who stayed unseen but never stopped watching. Me. Dad read it once, twice, then dropped it like it burned. I picked it up calmly, folded it, and said, I'm not here for your forgiveness. I'm here for what's mine. And I sat down. Not as their daughter, but as the one they tried to replace and couldn't. The table stayed frozen, forks halfway to mouths, eyes darting like trapped animals. Dad's voice cracked first. This is absurd. That will isn't valid. It's sentimental nonsense. No, I said, sliding the notarized letter across the table. It's legal. Grandpa filed it a year before he passed. He left a copy with his attorney. I had it verified. Mom reached for her wine glass. Missed. Her fingers trembled against the rim as she whispered, Why would he give it to you? I looked her straight in the eye. Because I never needed to be chosen to be loyal. I just stayed. Aunt Carol cleared her throat. She'd been silent until now. I always wondered, she said, barely above a murmur. Why your name was never on the donation plaques. Why your graduation wasn't even mentioned in the Christmas letters. She looked at Mom. You told us she dropped out of college. I turned to them both. I graduated top of my class. Magna cum laude. Full scholarship. You never even asked. Caleb stood slowly, letter still in hand. You mean I was brought here to replace her? The room held its breath. Dad reached out, trying to reclaim control with that practiced corporate voice. Caleb, it's not like that. You were part of a plan. For a new start. Caleb looked at him. You said I was your second chance. You never said what you were erasing to make room. He turned to me. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I nodded once. It's not your apology to make. The room felt smaller now, walls closing in, truth echoing louder than anyone's ability to spin it. Mom folded her hands. You think this makes you better? Coming in here with paperwork and accusations? No, I said. It doesn't make me better. It just makes me real. Again. There was a long pause. You always were dramatic, she added softly, the last arrow she had. I let it. It was almost dark by the time I got home. The sky was streaked with gray-orange like a bruise fading over time. Fitting. I placed the bag, still holding the will and test results, on the hallway table of my tiny apartment. The same one I rented when I was 21. Still creaky, still safe, still mine. My phone buzzed. It was Caleb. I read the whole letter. I think I need time, but thank you for telling me. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, take all the time you need. I'm not your enemy. He didn't reply, but he didn't need to. The next day, I met with Grandpa's old attorney. He looked at me over his glasses, then pushed a brown envelope across the desk. This was meant for you, he said. Your grandfather left instructions, but your parents blocked the delivery. Inside, a hand-drawn map of the property. Keys to a guest cottage I didn't know existed. A note in Grandpa's scrawled handwriting. It's small, but it's yours. Start something here that no one can take away. I closed the envelope, hands shaking in that strange way. Not from fear, but from the weight of being believed. That weekend, I drove up to the property, past the white colonial where my parents still lived. They didn't see me. Or maybe they did, but didn't come out. I followed the map to the edge of the woods, and there it was. A small cottage, stone steps, peeling green paint, a window box full of dead flowers, but still standing, like me. I spent the next few weeks clearing it out, scrubbing floors, painting walls, ripping out old carpet. There was something. We didn't talk much after that. Not about the past, anyway. Caleb came by once a week. Sometimes he brought tools, sometimes pastries. Never excuses, and that was enough. The community grew slowly, a few teenage girls at first, quiet, closed off, then more. A high school art teacher sent one of her students, a girl whose parents threw away her paintings because they were too dark. She painted a phoenix on the back wall of the studio, fiery reds and defiant gold. She didn't say a word while doing it, but when she finished, she looked at me and said, "Thank you for letting me take up space." I smiled, but inside, I wept, not for me, but for every version of myself that had asked that same silent question. Am I allowed to exist here? I never told my parents about the studio. I didn't need to. They knew. There were signs. The legal mail forwarded to the cottage. The property taxes in my name. The cousins who visited and stayed longer than expected. But they never called, never showed up, and I stopped waiting. Because something in me had shifted. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. Love, I realized, isn't something that should need proving. And legacy isn't always given. Sometimes, it's built. With your hands, with your voice, with your silence. One afternoon, I received a letter. No return address. Inside, a photo. It was me, 7 years old, sitting in Grandpa's lap, both of us covered in glitter glue and crayon marks. On the back, in fading ink, "You were always the artist." The days became quieter. Not empty, just fuller in different ways. I woke with the sunrise most mornings, opened the studio's windows, let the wind carry in whatever it wanted. The silence no longer felt like punishment. It felt like permission. Every corner of the cottage told a new version of me. The shelves held old science notebooks I used to hide under my bed. Each page now laminated, displayed proudly. The fireplace mantel carried 3 objects. A cracked mug that once held my first failed sculpting attempt. A framed letter from a student that simply read, "Thank you for not giving up." And a photo of Grandpa, his smile crooked, his eyes knowing. Sometimes, I lit a candle beside it, not for grief, but for gratitude. The studio became more than a space. It became a rhythm. We hosted open mic nights, art therapy sessions, quiet mornings with tea and no expectations. People came. People healed. People stayed. Sometimes only for an hour. Sometimes forever. We didn't ask what they were running from. We asked what they were ready to build, and in that question, we found belonging. One night, during a soft spring rain, Caleb stayed late. We sat under the awning out back, a pot of oversteeped chamomile between us. He looked at the sky for a long time before speaking. "Do you ever think they'll call?" he asked. I shook my head. "Number? And I don't need them to." He nodded, eyes heavy. "I've stopped waiting too." We didn't toast, we didn't hug, but something passed between us, a silent vow, not to erase the past, but to live in spite of it. Later that week, I returned to the big house, alone. I didn't knock, I didn't go inside. I left a package on the doorstep, one framed photo, one letter. The photo was from the studio, me with my students, paint-stained hands, laughing. The letter said, "You were right. I was too emotional. I was too dramatic. I was too much." The seasons turned like soft pages. Summer dripped in with wildflowers along the edge of the cottage, and laughter that spilled from the open doors like music. Fall arrived slower. Gold, quiet, reflective. In the early mornings, I would sit by the east window with a blanket over my shoulders, watching light thread itself through the mist that hugged the tree line. Caleb came less often, not out of distance, but growth. He'd started mentoring at a youth center downtown. He still texted me his bad jokes, still brought extra paintbrushes when we needed them, still signed his messages. Not the chosen one, but trying. It always made me smile. I started writing again, not in the old journal, but in a new one. Soft cover, clean pages, no pain tucked in the margins. I wrote letters I would never send, to Mom, to Dad, to the girl I used to be. Sometimes I wept while writing, not out of sadness, but because letting go requires both hands, and mine were finally open. One Sunday, the students threw a surprise event. They called it Founders Day. They read poems, sang, painted a mural of me as a tree with deep roots and glowing leaves. One girl hugged me and said, "I didn't know I mattered until I saw you being okay without being chosen." I cried that time, in front of everyone, and no one looked away. Because tears, when safe, don't weaken you. They water the ground. That night, I walked the trail behind the studio alone.